Today is the 17th February 1982. I am very pleased to have Girish Karnad with me right now. He is very famous as a Kannada playwright, at the same time a very fine actor, both on stage and film. We are having a short recording with him. Girish, you have been associated with the stage and screen both, and of course with this stage since a very long time. First of all, I would like to know when you came to the stage and how and why and how interesting you found. And you have been associated with both English and Kannada stage, I think.
Yes.
So, first of all, I would like to know a little about your early beginning.
I was brought up, really, first of all, I went to school and so on in a small place called Sirsi in Karnataka, the Western Ghats, in the Karwar district, which is the place for Yakshagana. And it was a small town. In those days, its population was only about 8,000, I think, 8,000 to 9,000. So it didn't just about qualify. That's small, just qualified for. And it was a taluka place. And it's a place which is well known for Yakshagana. And the second point about Sirsi is that people there were mad about theatre. So annually, just before the rainy season, all these touring company natics used to come there. And my father was the local government doctor. So that whenever they came, whenever they fell ill, he was called, so that we had a pass for every show, anytime we wanted to go. And my parents have always been interested in theatre. In fact, my father had seen theatre from 1923, you see. Early, he'd seen the early Kirloskar plays, and he knew the whole development of Marathi theatre. I mean, he was born in 1888, so he had the full advantage and memory and taste. And so was my mother. So if we talked, one's parents from one's childhood used to talk to her about Bal Gandharv and Khadilkar and Kirloskar and 1810 and but even in a small town like Sirsi, all the small groups which were not as good as Bal Gandharv company, the groups used to come, they used to enjoy going.
And these companies must have been producing in Marathi?
No, these which used to come to Sirsi were all Kannada.
All Kannada.
All Kannada.
You mean to say that Kirloskar company?
No. Kirloskar and so on in Marathi. You see, I'll tell you, my father was in the Bombay Medical Service. In those days, the Bombay state, in the early days, included Sindh.
Yes.
The whole of Maharashtra and Gujarat and northern Karnataka.
Yes, yes.
See, so
it has been divided just recently.
Just 56, until
yes.
56 it was there.
Yes.
So Sindh was later on taken off. But the old Bombay province still continued to have
Gujarat
Maharashtra and North Karnataka. So when he was transferred all over the place. So I was born in Mathiran, grew up in first...
You were born in Mathiran?
Yes. When he was serving there. Then spent 2 years, one of the first 2 or 3 years of my life in Pune. Then he retired, you see. But then the Second World War was on and they wanted doctors. So they extended his service and sent him to Sirsi, which was a small malarial town in backwoods of Karnataka. Because they needed all the young men for the front or for the cities, so he was given an extension and sent there. If you wanted to stay on, they said you can go and work there. Well, I'm happy that he went, although my mother still regrets that he left Pune and went to such a backwoods place. Because there it was, the atmosphere was full of theatre. You know, there was Yakshagana, the company natics used to come, and the local people were always doing nataks. And there is a particular community called Havyak Brahmins there. Havyaks, who are crazy about theatre, you know, about dancing in Yakshagana and all. So that even in all my friends among Havyak Brahmins, whenever we went to their place, some rehearsal or the other was going on. Either it was Yakshagana or it was some play. And even in school, you know, we were encouraged to do plays. So theatre was a basic, almost obsession of the place, more than me. I mean, everyone there was involved in theatre and wanted to be in theatre. And I wanted to be, well, I was excited about being an actor or something, but I never thought I would become a playwright. But one read, of course, plays and wanted to write plays. But essentially, I wanted to be a poet.
Oh,
And
did you write?
I wrote a lot of poetry. school days and college days, also kept writing poetry.
Where are they?
I mean, fortunately, and there's nothing survives. But fortunately, what happened was, after my MA examination, I went to my brother's place in Banaras, and there, suddenly I felt like writing my first thing, and it was play. And the play, I thought, also I wanted to write in English, you see. I wanted to write poetry, and I wanted to be an English poet, what's more. But when I started writing, it all poured out in Kannada, you know, and it was almost uncontrollable. I mean,
Your first play was Yayate.
yeah. So that's when the play was written, you know, started getting written. When I read it, that year I had a scholarship to England.
Which year was it?
60.
60. And what was your age at that time?
22.
22. So
Then-
your first play was written at the age of 22.
22. And then I went to England that time. Polishing the play, adding this, that. After going there, I sent it to my publisher.
And you got a publisher at
You
that
see, there is this publisher in Dharwad called Manohara Granthamala, which is our major publishing agency in Karnataka. In Karnataka, real literature was created by two publishers, and he's one of them. He's an old man who purely published. Now he's old, he's about 76, but who publishes entirely on instinct. I mean, he likes a person, he'll publish. But as a result, he has been responsible for introducing Shivram Karan, Parna Krishna Rao, you know, some of the great writers were first introduced by him, and then they developed on their own. So I sent my, I knew him in Dharwad, but I never had guts to say, will you publish, because it was such a big publishing agency, I didn't have the guts to ask him that he would publish my work. But then I sent him this play from Oxford, and he wrote back and said, fine. And there was a young critic called Kirtanath Kurtkoti who wrote an enthusiastic letter saying that this is very good. So I became a playwright.
So, in which year was it published?
Next year, 61.
In 61 itself. And which other plays you wrote after that?
Then I wrote Tughlaq after 2 years. 63, when I was returning from England, I was working on Tughlaq. I didn't know what to do with it. That was a fascinating material. But it took me a very long time to give it shape. I kept struggling with it.
How was the most interesting point, or what was the most interesting point of Tughlaq that excited
You see, funnily,
you?
it started for an odd reason. I mentioned this critic, Kirtanath Kurtkoti,
Yes.
earlier. This
Yes.
Right critic, who had also liked Yayate. He had written a history of Kannada literature, all the way we have travelled, which created a sensation in those days. It was the first really objective criticism where a lot of big reputations collapsed and were disappeared forever, and a lot of new reputations were made by that book. And he was considered the big name in criticism. And in that, when writing on theatre, he said, it's very sad that all our historical plays are essentially costume plays. You know, there is no play which takes history and interprets it to make it relevant to our modern times. So I said, why not? I mean, it was like a challenge. I had just done Yayati and I had no subject and so on. So I picked up a textbook of Indian history and started reading through it. Just seeing, looking at all the titles. Because you know, one knew most of history. I was always interested in history. That was the other passion of my father. He was actually a doctor in history. And suddenly when I came to Muhammad Tughlaq, I said, that's interesting, you know, because in the 60s, existentialism was very popular, you
Yes,
remember?
yes.
And there was always this question of anguish and madness, and what is madness and what is sanity. You know, all these problems are very much in the air, and one was talking about them, Sartre and Camus, and you know,
Yes, yes.
the whole lot, Kierkegaard. So I started reading on Tughlaq. And you know, Tamaku? No Tamaku.
Not tobacco, only pan masala.
Okay. And, you know, like a good existentialist, Tughlaq was also going to be an atheist, as I had planned it earlier. So the material wouldn't get any focus. What can this would become another chronicle play, not a costume play, but a chronicle play. How to, you know, what would be the point? And then, as I was going through reading several books, then in one book it was mentioned, which was later on, that he had banned prayer for 5 years. And that excited me. Why should a Muslim king in 13th century, you know, when the Maulvis must have been so strong, ban prayer, public prayer from his kingdom? And what would lead Then I studied and I found that he was an intensely religious man and a mystic. And then this became the contradiction around which I built the play. Now, why should a religious man want to ban prayer? Now that gave me the whole form for the play. Then when I put that against the fact that, because the play starts with Tughlaq deciding to go to Dalpa and ends with his deciding to come back. So when I counterpointed these two actions, then it was okay. Then the rest of it sort of more or less flowed. Although it was a great deal of struggle, because struggle only in the sense that I did a lot of research to get the period. And I'm glad to say that no one has faulted it on either on grounds of history or on grounds of Islam, because I read up a lot on Islam, the various traditions of mysticism, of prayer, Quran.
Yes, I think a lot of Muslims must have seen the play, and I don't know whether they would have bothered about what is being written about Tughlaq.
No, you see, because they bother or not, but the point is usually when you see a film like Shah Jahan, it's just accidental that he is Muslim. It doesn't matter that whether he's a Hindu or a Muslim. But in Tughlaq it matters that he is
a Muslim,
because the whole question of prayer and the fight between Maulvis and mystics is totally outside the Hindu. It would never happen to a Hindu king to.
But I think you had quite a different experience with Ataka Kukkut.
Yeah, that was after that.
On that ground.
Yeah.
And
no, but the whole central problem of Tughlaq, which was the banning of prayer, could not have occurred to a Hindu king, because you don't ban or you don't proclaim prayer at all. If you want to pray, you pray. If you don't want to pray, you don't want to pray. That's all. So then, so anyway, that was the point. And I think that there's a lot in Tughlaq about Islam. I think the one play which deals with Islam as a subject matter in it, because his fight with the Maulvis, why he fought with the Maulvis, his attraction to mysticism. And in Islamic history, the Maulvis and the mystics have always fought with each other. The Maulvis, because the mystics have always insisted that they can approach God directly, while the Maulvis always wanted to be approached through Quran and so establishment against the personal approach. Like happened in Hinduism between Bhakti cult and the ritualistic Brahminism.
What was your reaction to the banning of Ataka Kukkut and all that hubbub that went on in
I thought it was ridiculous. I thought it was ridiculous. One thing, I think the people who banned hadn't read the original, which is even more violent than my play. The original giant story is even more violent than my play. But otherwise, it was pointless. Because what shocked them is that in the original play, original story from Yashasthira. Do you know the story of Attica?
Yes.
The adultery is committed by the queen in an elephant stable. And the king goes and tries to give sacrifice of Attica Kukkut in a Kali temple. Now, in my play, everything happens in a
Jain temple.
Now, this horrified them, that adultery and the whole idea of violence. But in the original epic, because the adultery to me was immaterial. I think it's ridiculous to say no adultery can take place in a giant temple. It takes place in any temple anyway. But the reason why I switched it to giant temple, the sacrifice, is because even in the original, the king says, ultimately my God is, I have no God. I go by what Jineshwar says. Therefore, if I'm to commit violence, I'll go to Kali temple. But because Jineshwar forbids violence, therefore I shall give Kukkut of Atta. Now visually I thought the whole hypocrisy of this argument would come through. You are saying that you believe in the God and you're doing what the God is, not God, but whatever the principle of and you're doing what was explicitly forbidden by the same person.
No, so, but what I feel that the way it has been portrayed, there are in any other sequence now these deities as they are. Now if you bring them on the stage and there you can't avoid it. That Jineshwar Pratima has to be.
No, that's why the stage they said only legs will do. You don't have to have a, if nudity and all that is is what terrifies. I said, okay, it doesn't matter, you know. Just have legs. It can be huge.
But the very idea was not acceptable.
To be but I think that's because people are embarrassed by the fact that Girish is nude. I don't know why people have to be embarrassed.
No, that
on putting it on
motive
stage.
there. I don't think it's that way, but the whole thing that this thing is taking place in a temple.
No, that's
before
in
him
a
that-
temple.
What happened to the play after that?
No, now, then again, I didn't publish it because I was not happy with it. I knew something was wrong. Not the banning and all that didn't matter, but I knew that because it's a very complex myth, and I was very excited by it, and I knew something I had missed out which didn't make it. It made it a very wordy, to me. Then, in 1979, when I was in New York, and I was watching, and I was just sitting, suddenly it hit me what was wrong with the play.
What did you find was wrong with the play?
No, I mean, if the play is there, I said, oh my God, now that is what's wrong. So I came back and rewrote the play, now it's published.
It has been published in Hindi also or in Kannada only?
Kannada has been published. I don't know.
Acha. Hindi.
Hindi,
No, you will be knowing if somebody has translated.
Satyadev is doing it.
Sat-
He is the big.
Satyadev is doing that, but
Into Hindi. I mean, I have given him an English translation.
Oh.
He's putting it into English, Hindi. Then I'll go through.
You
the-
have done the English translation yourself.
And not an English translation, not a literary translation. I've done it word to word.
Hmm.
You know. So
You have done it word to
word to
word.
word. And you see, what happened is I read it out word to word. It was typed exactly as I read it out. So now he's put it into, he says he likes it very much. So let's see.
And what about your newest play, the recent one?
That again, I'm not happy about. I mean, then after
Is that your first play in English?
I've never written a play in English. Even my new one is not in English. I'll never write a play in English. Why should I write it in English? I wrote it in Kannada. It's about England, that's all.
Oh.
Anju Mallige.
Then I had the idea that you have written it in English.
No, I'm not on my... Why should I write in English? I mean, there are enough people to write in English. I'm a Kannada playwright, I'll write in Kannada. So,
Good.
even, you see, the point is...
At least there are some people who say that, who claim that, and you are proud about it, because nowadays we are denying quite a lot of things.
You see
that
that,
we
and this
have.
is interesting. In fact, it was reviewed by India Today also. The
Achha.
play is about Indians in English, and the racialism and their
And
affair.
this problem has been before you for quite some
I've
time,
been
I think
thinking
about
about
7-8 years,
Yes, I've been
if
thinking
not more.
Thinking about it. And it's about, Indians mixing with Englishmen, the contempt that the English have for Indians, the reverse contempt that well-educated Indians have for working class Englishmen.
Yeah.
There are layers and layers of dislike there, particularly in England, because in England the upper classes don't like the working classes.
Yeah.
And we both don't like the Indians, but the Indians are well-educated, are so well-educated that they have contempt for the working class, and so on. It's a very complicated setup. So I wrote the play, and when it was reviewed, I think by India Today, they said, no, this should have been written in English, not in Kannada, which irritated me. In English you can write on any subject, but in Kannada you can't write on anything except Dharwad and Hubli. This way the language will never grow. If you say that a particular subject is outside this language, I think the language will never go. Now why you can write Shogun, which is about Japan, you can write it in English and everyone reads it. You can write a Sanskrit play in English because people have tried it, done it, and it's been accepted. English has been stretched to an extent where you can write on any subject. You can even write about the Vedic India and people will read. Or even that kind of English that Raja Rao writes in Serpent and the Rope, which is his own strange kind of thing. You try that in Kannada, everyone will say, no, this is not correct Kannada, it should have come in English. Which is ridiculous, I think. I think the language will never grow if these kind of subjects are not tackled in the language. Of course it should be written in English, because everyone there is in English.
Actually, why the language, English or Kannada, why it should have been a problem there? I don't know. I don't know.
I think
Anything can be written in any language.
Yeah, I know. This is what I feel. That's why the language is really capable of doing. And it's true that the English characters would not have spoken Kannada, but so what? It's written for a Kannada audience and by a Kannada playwright.
No, that way.
Tughlaq would not have talked Kannada.
And the Sanskrit plays that we translate and they speak any Indian language, or Shakuntala being done in English and Shakuntala speaking English.
That's what I mean. If it's in English, no one objects. When you
No, but of course it will sound quite funny if we have the people from our village and they talking in English.
No,
in
not that.
Premchand's Godan,
Mm.
Hori talking in English. But of course, if it is
Yep.
translated and done in English, it has to
And
be.
it's easy, depending on which audience you're doing it for.
Mm.
If you do it for London, the London audience won't find anything funny about an
Ah.
Indian movie.
That
And
is-
after all, I'm writing for a Kannada audience. I'm not writing for London audience.
When did you start acting, Girish?
I used to act in school, then again in college. Yes, sir. Then
Was it in Kannada plays or
in English also.
In English.
But then I had lost all touch. Then really I started acting again because when in 1963 I returned from Oxford, I went to Madras as the assistant manager of the Oxford University Press. And there I came across this group called Madras Players. Now they were mostly non-Tamil people.
Acha.
And they were mostly interested, they were very passionately interested in theatre. But behind being non-Tamil, they were outside the local theatre. So there were Bengalis and there were Telugus and Kannadigas and English and Americans, all kinds of people, Keralites and so on. And with one or two Tamil speakers also. The only thing that commanded them was that they were interested in theatre. So I also joined in a small group and we started doing plays. I mean, now it seems as though we picked up very ambitious plays and probably we did them badly. But to me it was marvelous experience, because in the range of 6 or 7 years, either to direct or to act in Chekhov, Tennessee Williams, Arthur Miller, you learn something. I mean, you learn about
These
stage
are all
craft.
great playwrights.
They're the great playwrights, and even if you do the play badly, I don't know whether we did them badly or because one was always on stage, so one could not, as an audience, and as on stage, one always thought one did best. So that's how one started acting. But really,
Did you direct also at that time?
Some I directed. I did it, for instance, Evam Indrajit, because we got sick of doing Western plays. I myself translated Evam Indrajit so that we could produce it.
And you produced that?
Then I
acted in that
just
also?
directed. Then I translated Haivadan again for them,
Acha.
so that they then, when I left Madras, but they produced it later on. So they also did Shantata Kod Solo, it's Shantata. So, but these 6 or 7 years, I started acting, if not acting, directing. And it was really quite an experience because one really got exposed to world theatre from inside. You were doing a play. And then suddenly you could understand the difference between a Chekhov and an Arthur Miller. What happened. And because I remember A View from the Bridge, we had a lot of trouble. We started in April and did the play in December. I was the only actor who was throughout doing the main role. For nearly 6 months, the cast was changing and we was keeping doing. And after about 3 or 4 months, it yielded nothing. I reached the rock bottom of that character. There was nothing more to explore. I did everything, thought about it, this, that, improvised. But it wouldn't yield. Ultimately, one did well because one seemed to know the character almost, Go to the Chekhov when we were doing that, when I was doing the small role, Serebryakov. It seemed endless. And one went on and one tried this and it made new sense and you tried this. The real difference in quality between a really great playwright like Chekhov and a very good playwright like Arthur Miller, you can read of on stage, which in a reading doesn't really come through, when you're involved in direction or acting.
While you are talking, it seems I can feel that you were so much involved in the whole thing and acting and
Yeah, I know, it was marvelous. It was 7 years of learning process for me, It was
but
really,
perhaps after that you didn't act much on the stage. Or
after
did
that
you?
only once I acted, which was in 1971. Karanth did Oedipus, 3 plays. Oedipus, Jokumar Swami, that is Aurto Tabala, and a play called Sankranti. Together, 3 plays. In which I acted the main roles in Oedipus and Aurto. That was the last one.
That was the last. Don't you miss that type of good acting now? Because now
yes.
you are involved in film, and film has got absolutely different type of technique. Whether
And
you
since-
can't be swayed away with the emotions or acting, and you are.
And in any case, film acting doesn't have the thrill of stage acting. Although film acting I'm doing is professional and the stage acting I was doing was amateur.
Yeah.
Even then, for an actor, the real medium is theatre. It is not.
What do you feel is the reason that the film actor doesn't feel that involved and that satisfaction?
Because you see, what the audience gets in a film is not what the actor gives, it is what the director gives. Because after the actor has acted, the film has been cut. The director has decided where the camera angle should be, then he has cut it, then he has put music, then he has put sound effects, he has mixed the film, and then presented the film, sometimes cutting out what the actor may consider his best moments. So what is presented to the audience is not what the actor has presented, it is what the director presents. While on stage, there is nothing between the actor and the audience except the play. I mean, his communication is absolutely direct. If an actor fails, this is what I'll tell you, in a film, you can take an amateur and still get a good performance. For an important role, like in Yakshagana, I don't know whether you've seen it.
No.
For the main role, we took a girl who looked absolutely right for it, who had a sensitive face. Put her, she won all kinds of acting roles. But she would not have been able to sustain a role on stage because, on stage it's a question of stamina, building up, of the graph, of controlling the audience, responding to it, an actor on stage.
But even in films we feel that somebody has acted very well or very good performance. So now how is...
that very often depends on the director. Unless it's a very good actor. I mean, if it is already a very good actor, say like Nassim, they will manage that. That's okay. But I'm talking of... but even they, if the film is bad, the performance doesn't come through. The director doesn't know what he's doing. You can kill an actor's it still isn't an actor's
Of course, the director is important on stage also, but what you mean to say that there are so many technical aids with which the director highlights different things and even the performance of that, it's not the whole thing on stage.
He only adds color here and there into the picture, but ultimately if the actors fail, the communication fails. While in film, you can do it again, reshoot karo, अच्छा expression ठीक नहीं आ रहा है तो पीछे से लो. Sometimes one has even put substitute actors.
Yes.
Because a particular running, the actor wasn't doing well, or actress was looking cocky. Should उस shot के लिए get a graceful person and make her run. The audience doesn't feel as you. Yes. Even to that extent, the actors will be make it.
You have done the film directing also, and how do you like that?
That is enormous. That once it gets, when we did Samskara in 1969, we said we must do one film in one's lifetime. एक किया तो काफी experience के लिए काफी.
Do you feel that?
No, that's why once it got into the blood, when we just went on and on and on, now it's become the major occupation. Because it really is one thing in India, of course, it is the major medium. So it attracts a lot of attention, it has a lot of, it makes an impact on a lot of people because it gets written about. I mean, it's ridiculous. I think I'm a better playwright than a filmmaker, but if I talk to the director of the drama department in an American university, he will not know Tughlaq. But the director of the film festival in Nam knew all about my films. They wrote me a letter and said, somehow there seems to be more communication about film and publicity about films these days than there is about theatre. I don't know why. They even knew about the films made by my assistants in Karnataka, because many more film festivals take place, films are transported, but there seems to be much less communication with theatre. That's
Do you feel that something should be done about it?
It should be done. Generally, I think world over, film has become the medium somehow.
Leave aside the world over, even in India. Of course, I think that in India there is now quite a lot of communication. The groups are being invited in different parts of the country, and these theatre seminars and all that are being organized quite often, and quite a number of people come in contact with each other. And I think in the last 20 years, quite a number of plays have been translated. Constantly this translation work is going on. And
more so than before, certainly.
More so than before. And so a lot of dramatists and people are knowing each other.
But a film gets instantly written about, talked about and so on. That's one thing. That's one medium. And secondly, of course, the possibilities, technical possibilities of a film are so many. So
No, there is something.
It's a different kind of thrill, you know.
There is something in films. You see, anybody connected with films is somehow he is elevated to a high, and a lot of.
That's because it's the publicity he gets. That's I mean, I'm sure that Balgandhar in his days was as admired as Amitabh Bachchan is today. But it happens today that the publicity surrounding the films is far outweighs.
Yes, that is true. I think Girish, there is one thing. Recently, there has been a lot of talk about this national theatre for India, a national platform for Indian theatres and all that. What is your idea? Do you think that there is anything like national theatre, or there can be anything like national theatre in India?
I think one could create it like in England they created. I mean, they have a national theatre now, as you know. No, true, they have only one language, and we have several languages.
That is the problem. That is the problem.
Exactly.
And
so this national theatre can only be one place where plays from all over the country can be done, but it doesn't mean anything more than that.
Anything more than that.
Because ultimately, if there is no theatre in Bangalore, what's the point of Kannada plays being done in Delhi? I mean, in Hindi. Ultimately, you know, Bangalore must have its own. You know, if all the states develop their own regional theatres, then you can say there is one kind of, you know, a showpiece theatre where all the best plays of India will
not
be done.
only that, if you really want to have a feel of Indian play, it can't be something, a combination of everything, something from every province and every language put together, and you can't have an Indian play like that. But in the different language theatres can form the Indian theatre or national theatre. That's all. This is what I feel. You can't have one.
Yeah, exactly.
You have been just talking because this has been going on for quite some time, and people are seriously thinking about it, national theatre. What can be a national theatre in our country? It can't be. You just had been recently to Bhopal, and you have been talking about that. What do you think that institution, how is that going to be helpful to the theatre movement?
Well, that depends entirely on what Karanth is trying to do that succeeds when he's doing repertory theatre there. Because there are two theatres which are the part of the whole setup, and that setup is quite extraordinarily impressive. I mean, they have one of the most marvelous museums of folk theatre I've ever seen. Not theatre, folk arts. Not even in Delhi have I seen anything. And also a very impressive gallery of modern painting. And they're building a large library now, and so on. You know, it's all connected with it, which is very nice. Apart from the fact that it is a beautiful building. It's a beautiful building which has been designed by Charles Wood, with two rather nice, with the two theatres. Now, how exactly those theatres will be used, whether they will have a permanent repertory which will work with that, whether it will get support from Bhopal people. Because while Madhya Pradesh has a tradition of tribal arts and so on, I don't think it has really a tradition of theatre as such.
Actually, the whole of Hindi-speaking area doesn't have any tradition.
So it just ultimately depends on...
Hindi theatre is developing more in Delhi and Calcutta than any other place.
Yeah, exactly. That's really been the work of National School of Drama and related groups like that, you know, and Anamika and other groups here. So ultimately, if a repertory succeeds in making an impact in Bhopal, so that people get interested in it.
Again, that this repertory thing is also, I don't know, because all these repertories that are being organized this way and being supported by government, they will, I think for years to come, they will be perhaps always depending on some sort of subsidy. Are they going to become independent? I really wonder. And if they don't become independent or self-sufficient, I don't know whether they should be called repertory.
Well, in Europe, most of the theatres are subsidized.
Yes, even the national theatre is subsidized, heavily subsidized.
Except for television. Even film is subsidized there because it's subsidized by the television people. So in fact, except for television, all the arts are subsidized here.
So do we mean to say that all the good art has to be subsidized? Because commercial theatre, you see, go very well. They earn well in Bengal also, in Maharashtra also. And in Gujarat also, at least in Bombay, the Gujarati plays, they do there and very well. Can't there be some way to have a good theatre at the same time, make it self-sufficient?
Very difficult to say.
Because nowadays quite a number of people come and see the plays. Now here in Calcutta, there are groups which give shows, and it's
No, for instance,
very good scene.
Karant also in his later days, anything he did in Bangalore, he used to get full houses.
But then the thing is that you get full house.
Only for Karant.
No, and then one house a week.
Yeah, I know that.
So or maybe in a fortnight, so that you can't make it self-supporting.
Supporting, and you can't make it self-supporting until you can pay actors to pay all their attention to this and depend on it. So you can't have a show every evening and expect actors to come if you're not paying them on that basis. You know, it's all a vicious circle. For instance, most of the actors that Karant was working with were people with offices now. They can't go to an office morning till evening, come and act in a play and treat it as almost on a professional basis.
Actually, you see what is happening, this is a peculiar class which I think in the last 20 years have come up. Formerly what was there? There was a professional class and there was an amateur class.
Yeah.
Now what is happening, that even these amateurs, now we expect professional proficiency from them. And some of them are getting a part payment also for their work. So they are neither totally amateur. They are definitely not amateur in the true sense.
And the reason for why they're expected is very often also because the brunt of whatever is called good theatre, good literary theatre, the brunt of what's called experimental theatre or forward-looking theatre is all borne by amateur theatre, amateur groups, not by professionals.
Not by professionals.
That is the problem. So everyone expects too much from the amateurs sometimes, expects them to behave like the National Theatre in England, which has trained actors all the time. Here, that becomes a problem.
And don't you feel that amateur theatre or non-professional, let us, or non-commercial, let us say, how can it always stand and go on if it is engaged in experiments only? Now that is one point that bothers me. And unless until you have the regular things, regular plays.
But what can be the regular play? That is the problem, because what passes off as a very successful Marathi play is really very melodramatic. Really, it's pointless to expect a group of sensitive people to do
that type
kind
of play.
Melodramatic junk that is very successful. Say Dubhang, there's a play called Dubhang and Dr. Lagu has acted. It's absolute muck.
No, but then should we conclude that we should have such plays, which are good plays at the same time, they are connected with our everyday life, they can be interesting also.
Yeah, it goes without saying.
Because what I feel, especially in Hindi, what has happened,
unfortunately not enough people can make a living or write. For instance, in England, you take a play by Peter Sheffer, say, Private Cleaning Public. It's not a great play, but it's an enjoyable play, and it's something that can run to full houses. It doesn't have to be great literature, or it doesn't have to be an immortal play, but it's very well written, very touching, that kind of thing.
There were quite a number of Bengali plays that are going on nowadays, being done by these groups here. None of them can be called a great play, and you will wonder that many of them are not published also.
Yeah.
They are written for the group, they are staged, the actors and all that, they are kept in mind and they are written. Just as you see Jagannath. I don't know if you have seen that play.
Is it good?
It's a good script, but nothing great about that. Nothing great about that. And it's more because of the production that is it goes through. Or most of Utpal's plays, of course, they are published, but nobody else produces that. But they are good theatre somehow, and they come up well. Of course, one may have political differences with him, and that too quite a lot, because
they are beautiful productions with this.
But they are beautiful productions, but they are not literature. Now that is one very strange thing here also. Nowadays Manoj Mitra is writing a lot of plays. Again, we won't put most of them as good or great plays. Madhav Babu also for the last 10-15 years he is not writing independent plays. Now that is a tragedy, and I don't know, this is a very strange thing. You see, there is such a demand for it, and even then the people are not coming forward with good plays. And it's very difficult now. So what is a good play? Now it's very difficult for us to say.
So there are not enough people writing plays. If there are enough people writing plays, automatically some of it will be good.
Yes, some of it
will be at least likely good. Yeah, that's true.
What do you feel? Why are they not writing?
I think a lot of it, at least in the south, has gone into films. A lot of the time. For instance, Jabbar Patel has gone into films. Lankesh has made 5 films. I of course have been in films. I mean, now we started the rot in the south.
No, so that is the tragedy, isn't it? Then should we stop the making of films and people going there? Because all the good actors are going to the film. You see, just say from the Hindi stage, quite a number of good artists there.
It's because you can't make you see, for instance, 10 years ago, as a Marathi actress, they were quite happy to act in Marathi stage, professional Marathi stage. This was Mogesh Shrikant Moge was telling me. He was very successful in Marathi stage. They never thought of going into films. The Marathi stage itself gave them enough. This was about 10-15 years ago. And there was great glory attached to it, everything. But nowadays every Marathi actor wants to go into films. Why?
Because film, there are 2-3 reasons. One is that you earn more in films than on the stage. And I think that is a very big criteria.
Very big. Because the difference also is enormous.
Enormous. And then again you get a lot of popularity. Now again that is by lakhs and lakhs of people see you. And in the stage you don't have that. So I think these are the important factors. But then you are losing, the stage is losing their talents. Now I don't know what can be done about it. And the payments stage can never
match up.
Can never match up with the films. What are your future projects, Girish?
Nothing at the moment that's definite. Thinking of 3 or 4 plays. A film based probably vaguely on Machakati, but not an adaptation of Machakati.
It will be an independent
rewriting of the tale.
Rewriting of the tale. How is it that you have been attracted to these old themes? Of course, your latest one is a new modern.
I find them more resonant than modern thing. I find modern thing have too many complications of you have to guide the attention of the audience too far. In an older material, you can do what you like. The world is yours. You create the world, and you can make the kind of point you want to make.
Why do you want to have the easy path? A person like you,
no, but then you can try much bigger things. Much more you can try. The canvas you can try, and the kind of material you can try is much more. If you try, automatically modernism brings a reduction of canvas. Unless, I mean, even someone like Brecht found that. That's why all his successful plays are those that don't deal with 20th century.
No, but I feel that
it may make up for intensities.
Our current day problems are not being taken up truly in the plays, and playwrights like you should do that.
Don't interest me on material.
Thank you very much, Girish. It wasn't a long talk, but still it has been fruitful, and I hope that next time when you come we will have a sitting, and we will be able to have some few more people to ask you questions, because I asked whatever I felt, and it might be more interesting. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
End of recording.